Welcome, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Down to the Wire. I'm back with the Shark, and this is episode 15, right? I Shark confirmed. Okay,
That's
cool.
right.
All right, cool. Just making sure because I can't remember half of our episode numbers, but it's okay. Today we are back with our good friend Colby. We're gonna be talking more just about the season and what's going on. What I wanted to open up with Colby is that the other day when the reserves came out. Devin Booker was nowhere to be seen on the roster, and LeBron commented saying that Devin Booker is the most disrespected player in the entire league. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a really, really big statement for a young player that hasn't won any games. That's the first thing that I would say out loud. That's a big statement, but because it comes from the face of the league, it carries a lot of weight to it, which is why I think Mr. Silver named him to the All Star team. There's a lot of worthy players that were left off of the All Star roster this year. I think it's a really big statement.
I like that. And Colby, I know you've said this before, but whenever we looked at the reserves, you were saying that
Mm,
Mike Conley deserved an All Star spot.
yeah,
So
yeah. And part of it's because you guys know I got love for the Jazz. I mean, I do. I will admit that out loud. However, here's a guy who's played 12 years in the league at a high level, has never been named an all-star. Never. And now he's playing for literally the best team in the NBA. And most of the time,
mhm.
the best teams in the NBA have had three all-stars named to the all-star team. That's happened a lot. I want to say that happened with the Warriors, the great Warriors teams of recent memory. That happened with Brooklyn Nets back east. It's happened with the Lakers in the past. It's happened with great Cavaliers teams, great Jazz teams, great Lakers teams, great Celtics teams. And so I don't know. To me, I'm looking at the full package and looking at how Conley's played on both sides of the ball. And I think his numbers speak a little more loudly than people give him credit for.
uh, like that a lot. Like that a lot. So we obviously looked at the
Hmm.
West, and obviously like we saw our thoughts. What about the East? What are your thoughts on the East?
Yeah, Trey Young not being named an All Stars is pretty tough to swallow. I won't lie. I think he is such a dynamic player and he's so entertaining and his numbers are so good. You know, I have a hard time seeing an All Star team, an All Star roster set up that has a Devin Booker but doesn't have a Trey Young. That seems a little wonky to me.
I agree because if I remember correctly, they both played in the All Star game last year.
Nope, I don't think Booker's been an All Star yet. I think this is his first year,
Booker,
isn't
Booker did become an All Star last year, but it was after Damian Lillard got injured.
he? That's right. I remember that.
So he wasn't originally an All Star. He just
So similar to this year with him covering for AD.
yes, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. And the
Yeah.
one thing I would say too, guys, just to not be that negative hometown guy for my team, there's so many great players in the league now. I think in years past, you could look at who they named to the All Star team and kind of go, "Oh, well, my guy should be there because of so and so." And that's where things get a little hard for me. I look at all the selections that were made, and all these guys are having good years, and all of them are playing great quality ball. It's hard to know who you would take off to add somebody, and that's the one thing that the All Star snub lists don't do a great job of saying who they don't think should be on the list in order to put their guys on. And that's my problem. As much as I'd love to see Conley on there from the West, I have a little bit of an argument against Devin Booker, but at the end of the day, he's a great ball player and he's put up great numbers on a pretty good team this year.
Definitely. I have my fair share East players that I wish would have made it, and I'm kind of upset that Zion made it because I feel like Zion, the Pelicans aren't really doing that well. If it was
Right.
anyone on the Pelicans, I feel like Brandon Ingram probably deserved it a
Sure.
little bit more. But I think just Zion being a fan favorite makes it so
Yep.
where he gets more of the coach votes, and
Yep.
because
They have a lot of good dunks in the All Star game, isn't he?
yeah, so that's kind of what I'm upset about because I feel like there's other good like power forward centers in the league to cover his spot, but I don't know.
Who who do you think should have been there from the West? If he's not the big that you pick, who do you pick in his place?
I need to look up the actual roster to make sure that I'm not saying someone that's on the roster. So West reserves. But I'm gonna talk about the East while I'm looking this up.
Okay.
There's two guys that I wish that would have made it that didn't make
Mhm.
it, and one of them is
Mhm.
just I have a soft spot for because of just his history in the league, and the other one I just think he's very underrated. My soft spot person is um Gordon Hayward. I think Gordon Hayward is
Mm.
having a resurgence of a year this year. I think
Yeah.
that after how they didn't really utilize him well to his strengths in Boston, and I think that him and Charlotte, even though the Hornets aren't necessarily doing that well, he's still having a pretty good year being another one or two option. And the other person on the East, oh, actually, he did make it. But I was gonna say if he didn't, Nikola Vucevic, because I feel like he's very underrated. I feel like
Yeah.
that this is first.
Vucevic made it this year.
Yeah, he made it this year. I'm saying if he
Yeah.
didn't, that would have been my other
Oh, I
person.
understand.
Yeah. So for my other power forward, or power forward like center type person,
Uh-huh.
I would have gone with LaMarcus Aldridge.
Mm.
Because the
Mm.
Spurs this year, they are doing very, very well compared to the past, and you can't overlook LaMarcus Aldridge being the number one or two option on that team. And I
You
think,
know, I don't disagree with you about having somebody on a Spurs team that's outperformed projections, but I actually think DeRozan probably should have gotten the nod over LA because I don't know that LA's actually been the main contributor to those wins, if I'm real.
yeah, it most likely if DeRozan probably should have gotten it over LaMarcus Aldridge, but going just based off the forward center position, I was
Oh yeah, I
thinking,
get you.
yeah, LaMarcus Aldridge. Cause then I could like, I'm trying to think if Cat was healthy, Cat could have been there.
Hmm.
If I'm trying to think other players in the league. I think Montrezl Harrell could have technically been there. I think
Yep.
he's a really good
Mm.
player. He's
Yeah.
very underrated, especially on the Clippers this year. Um,
Actually, he plays for the Lakers this year, and he
oh
comes
yeah,
off a.
Lakers this year. My bad, I got switched up.
Hate to see it.
I'm sorry, I can't get my facts straight sometimes.
That's okay.
Alright.
There's so much player movement anymore. It's
I
hard to
know,
keep
right?
up.
Like,
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
remember who's on half of that Lakers roster. There was so much movement this offseason. Like Dennis Schroeder, Marcus Sol, JaVale left. I can't like I get there's just too much. I try to stick with my team only and see who's everybody on that roster.
Agree.
Yeah. So
But
moving on from that, so Colby, I want to actually go through with you. If you, we're gonna do all the awards. So we're gonna,
Okay.
so basically, let's say it's about mid season right now.
Yes.
yeah.
With the 72 game structure, let's go through our
Yes.
season awards. So who do you think would
Mhm.
be win Coach of the Year?
Well,
Ooh.
I don't know. I think you're hard pressed to find a better job done than Quinn Snyder with my Jazz. I mean, they're playing a high efficiency on both sides of the ball. They're getting production out of guys that we've never seen before, and I think a lot of it has to do with his system and the way he executes it. I really do. I think it's hard to argue against him. I'd also, it's hard to go wrong with Pop. Pop has gotten far more out of that Spurs team than I would have ever saw coming.
I like both of those choices. I think personally for me, I would have gone Doc Rivers just to see a Sixers team that like would finish middle of or middle of the playoffs in East. Now lead the East, especially over teams like the Nets, the Bucks,
Hmm.
Pacers. I think those would be really good options.
No, I don't disagree with that. There's a lot of talent in the league for sure. I love mentioning the Pacers in the midst of that
Yeah.
because I always love to look at a team that doesn't have any wow star power players on their team, but that they're able to have a coach that gets a lot out of their talent. And that's why, honestly, if the Warriors make the playoffs, I think Steve Kerr should get a look because of the different trials and challenges that he's faced.
No, yeah, and the Warriors, I've watched a lot of basketball games and like read up on some stats and whatnot. They're really trying to figure out what's the best lineup for their team. And I think
Yep,
it's just all experimenting.
I agree.
Oh, by the way, I saw a trade rumor the other day. Dalton wasn't very happy about this one, but the Mavericks are looking to trade KP to the Warriors.
Yep, yep.
What are your thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
I think he makes a lot of money and has a really spotty health history. And for me to take a flyer on him, it would be to get out from underneath Wiggins's terrible contract. If I could do it to get out from underneath Wiggins's terrible contract and have a big guy that could rotate through the middle, it would be tempting to me if I could get out from underneath that awful contract, and that would be probably the only reason why I would consider it. Um, if I'm Golden State, unless I can get rid of a bad contract, I don't know that I would be willing to risk it just because dude's crazy talented, but
Mhm.
he can't stay healthy, and he makes a lot of money. And if I'm Dallas, I don't know that I'm willing to throw in the towel that quickly on him. I think he and Luca have some decent chemistry, and I think they might be giving up
Mhm.
a little too early. Those are my first thoughts.
Yeah,
It's-
I agree with most of what you said. I just agree. I think that Andrew Wiggins is having a really good year this year. I think it's very underrated. He was doing pretty well on on the All Star ballots just because how well he was doing, being a second option
Hmm.
for a team. So,
Right.
I'd rather actually throw in Kelly Oubre because I feel like after even if he is a defensive help, I feel like after this year when Klay Thompson comes back, we're not gonna really need him because he was just to be the Klay Thompson replacement. So,
Isn't he in a contract year though? Isn't he probably not coming back next year anyway?
I think I don't know, to be honest. I thought it
No, that's
was
fair.
I thought it was
Mhm.
1 or 2 years, but
Yeah, I think he's in a contract year. I don't know that anybody's committed to him coming back next year. Last I'd heard. I could be wrong too though.
yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But then if we were to use that Kelly Oubre and maybe a couple picks, maybe we could get something out of KP for not as much. But I
Yeah.
I just I think what they shouldn't trade Curry, they shouldn't trade Clay,
No.
Draymond,
No.
Wiseman, Pascal, or Kevon Looney. And
Yeah,
I'm
your list is a little longer than mine. I think my list, honestly, if I could get something decent, even for Green at this point, I think Draymond's already peaked in his career. And if it were me, if I could get something decent for him, I'll be real. The right deal would tantalize me. I'm just being real.
But the thing with Draymond Green is that his game doesn't require a lot of athleticism because it's all it he run he's just it's all mind. That's all his basketball IQ is just gonna go straight up, and that's what makes him such a great
Sure.
player. And I think
Hey,
he
no, and yeah, I agree. I mean, trust me. I mean, I get it. He reminds me of some of the great point forwards from the past, and I get it. I do. But if the right deal came across the table, I'm telling you, he wouldn't be untouchable for me. He's still a great player, Gabe. I,
yeah
I won't argue that with you.
yeah I've watched a lot of basketball for the Warriors this season, and I've
Sure.
seen a lot of good production out of James Wiseman, and his number one
Yes.
mentor this year would be Draymond Green.
Draymond.
So I
Yep.
think I think keeping him around, especially with Wiseman for the next few years, would be
Sure.
really, really good for us.
Yep. Yeah, I
Because
agree.
I feel like that even if we have all this talent, Draymond, Curry, Clay, I feel like we're definitely also building for the future with a top
Yes.
3 pick next year in the draft,
Yep.
which is so I think after that we pick up maybe a small forward in the draft, and then that's a deadly lineup next year. Now I'm thinking about
Sure.
it.
Well, honestly, I mean, I'm always a big fan of taking whoever is the most talented at the top, rather than drafting for position. I think the teams that make that mistake pay for it in the years that come. I mean, ask the Portland Trailblazers about drafting Sam Bowie. Ask the Portland
Mhm.
Trailblazers about drafting Greg Oden. You know, I mean, I think you draft talent. The thing about that's intriguing about the Warriors is that they have such a great mixture of experience with talent at varied positions. And if they literally take the most talented position player at any position, they could slide that lineup around. Because I think Clay could play almost any position. I think Steph can play one and two. I think I think Draymond can play 2 through 5. I mean, honestly, sky's the limit if they were able to just get a talented ball player. And Kerr is such a great coach. I don't even think they need to look for a position. I just think they go for talent.
No, yeah, I definitely see that. Hopefully, whatever happens this 2021 draft, Bob Myers chooses the correct person.
100%.
All right,
Yeah.
so we're gonna move up this list. Who do you have for most improved player?
Most improved. I think Wiggins needs to be considered in that. Um, man, there's another guy. Nuts. There's an East Coast guy that Levine has taken, I think, a next level step in his game. I think he makes a really strong argument too. What do you guys think?
I definitely agree with both. In my opinion, last year I thought Bam should have gotten it,
Mm,
and he didn't. Because the Heat were a fifth seed, and the Pelicans weren't even in the playoffs, and they gave it to Brandon Ingram, and I was kind of upset by that
yeah,
because even though Brandon Ingram did have a good year compared to everything else, it just
sure.
wasn't. He didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
And I understand the West is different. You're using a lot of new pieces, and it's kind of young, but at the same time, it's like to me, if your team doesn't go from a non-playoff team to a playoff team,
Hmm.
you shouldn't get that award unless if you went from like 15th to like ninth, then maybe.
Right.
But
Sure.
definitely I probably would have given it to Bam last
Hmm.
year. So I hope that his production this year helps him get back into that conversation because I think he's
Yeah.
having even a better year than last year.
Well, and they need it from him because they're struggling a
Wait,
lot more than I think a
Yeah.
lot of us thought they would.
I think also a big part of it has been injuries between him, Jimmy Butler. They're a lot of their talent, I think they got are signed with other teams, so they don't have
Yeah.
the same roster anymore. So
No, that's true.
I think it is a little harder for them this year, but
Sure.
hopefully I don't see them out of the playoff contention. I think they'll be in the playoff contention, and I think that's a team that will be able to get far if they. That's a heart over height team, even though like we're
Sure.
not talking about height, we're just talking about talent.
Yep.
But if that
Yeah.
team has a lot of heart, and I think with Eric, they'll be able to go pretty far.
Sure.
Yeah.
All
So right
right,
now they're 8th seed,
8C.
but
So they are fighting. They
yeah,
are fighting to get back into good contention.
yeah, back in playoff contention.
Sure.
All right, so this one is kind of a no-brainer every single year because it goes to the same person, six man.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're hard pressed to not give that to Jordan Clarkson from Utah. If I'm just being super real, I mean, the guy has been the leading scorer or the second leading scorer in a lot of their games this year, and he consistently comes off the bench. So I mean, to me, he's my first and second choice. But obviously, like what you were saying earlier about games you've watched and paid attention to, I've paid a lot of attention to Utah. So that's going to be what my preference probably is going to be.
I really like that pick, but just because of how the league is, it's probably gonna go to Lou Will.
You think he'll go to Sweet Lou again, huh?
Well, because even like
Yeah.
that's how this specific award goes every single year. Because if you think about it, how many times did Jamal what's his name?
Paul Crawford.
Yeah, Jamal
Oh
Crawford.
yeah,
How many
Jamal
times did he
Crawford. He
get
got it
it?
a ton of times. Yeah, you're right.
So and that's Lou Will's gotten it at least 3 or 4 times in like the last 5
Yeah.
years, right?
No, you're not wrong.
So I think he'll always be in the conversation and as well and if his team is always doing as well as they are.
Hmm.
Because he is a player that should start, but he doesn't for some reason.
Right. Same way as Clarkson in Utah, though, dude.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he might be actually the second best offensive player on the team, and the guy doesn't start.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think I kind of want it to go to Jordan Clarkson over Lou Will,
Hmm.
but
Sure.
it's just the league. It just how
Right.
they handle this award, it just goes to Lou Will most of the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, you could be right. I'd love to see it buck that change, though. That'd be cool.
Yeah. All right. So who would be your defensive player of the year?
Well, again, I'm going to be biased here, and I'm going to probably say Rudy Gobert, just because I think the Jazz have really upped their game defensively. as well as offensively. And I think Rudy is a lot of why and how that happens. I'm a big Giannis guy. It's hard to argue Giannis should be considered in it. The other one that I'll say is Joel Embiid is having a really strong defensive year. I think it's hard to not give him some consideration. But I'm going to be a hometown fan and say that I think it should be Rudy. I will.
Dom,
Mm.
who is your pick on this one? Because I have a interesting pick that Colby hasn't said.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say Anthony Davis, but then he's been injured a lot,
Yep.
and like it's not gonna be helping his case. But
Nope.
I think one that because typically I would say like Kawhi Leonard, but he wasn't the same as he was back in San Antonio or Toronto.
His
But
game has really changed. Oh,
yeah,
ever since he went to Toronto, his game has changed, and he's more of an offensive minded player now. That's what
Hmm.
I've noticed. He's not that two-way player anymore. He's more of an offensive minded player.
yeah. I mean, because I thought about him, but then it's like ever since he left the Spurs, he's changed. Like what Gabe said, but and then like I said, I was guessing Anthony Davis, probably a no go, but I plan to go with probably Joel Embiid because he's been doing really good defensively. So that's my
Wow. I don't know if I'm just thinking like differently than everybody else or whatnot, but
Cheers.
my pick is Miles Turner. He has 3 blocks per game in the league, while everybody else has like closer to 1 or 2. He he's just unstoppable. If you watch his game and just the way he handles the paint, it's just so unstoppable. I feel like, and I think that's another reason why the Pacers are doing so well is because of his defensive help in the paint.
I think he's a strong contender. I still look at the fact that you take Rudy Gobert out of Jazz's defensive set, and they are a below average defensive team. And Rudy literally changes the ways teams approach scoring against the Jazz. I think the way Philly uses Embiid is similar. I think it's a two horse race between the two of them. I'll go on record as saying that out loud.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. All right, so who would be your rookie of the year? I can't include James Wiseman as much as I want to, but he does not has
Mm,
not been he's not been utilized and has not been playing well. So
Yeah, if I'm real, I think it's a runaway for Ball. If I think he's got the hype. I think he's got the excitement. I think he has the numbers. I mean, if I'm really honest, even going back to your conversation about seeing how Hayward needed All Star consideration, I think Ball's had a great year. I think Ball's had as great a year as any of those other guys that have been considered for the All Star team. And he's an exciting, fun player, and I think he's the future of that franchise. I think it's Ball.
do
I
you?
would have to agree with you.
I definitely agree too. The only close second would be the guy in the Kings, Tyrese. What's his name?
Tyrese, yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
The
I
poor
can't
Kings.
Halberton or something like that. I don't remember his
Yes,
last name. Yeah,
Halliburton. Yep.
okay. Um, do you think with that if that Hornets team continues to play the way they do you think they will be able to be championship contenders?
Give me a time frame.
5 years.
I think they're at least one more stud away from doing that.
Because
Be-
I think it's the paint. That's what they need. They need paint help in the big because they have Gordon Hayward, they have Ball, they have Rozier, Malik Monk, Miles Bridges. You have a lot of good talent in the guard
uh-huh.
forward position, but you don't really have that help in the center position.
Yeah, and I agree that they're deep on their wings. I do think they need some enforcement and some more physical presence inside defensively and for rebounding. But if I'm honest, I still think they need a stud. I think Ball can be their number one guy or their number two guy. But I think they need whoever his real running mate is. I like Hayward's game, but going all the way back to when he was on Utah, I think he is a number three option on a great team. I do not think he is a number one or a number two option on a great team.
Bold statement. That's true.
I honestly liked that Jazz team before he left. I thought if the Warriors didn't have Kevin Durant, that series could have gone to 6.
I
I
agree.
highly
But they
agree
still
with
wouldn't
that.
have beat them in 7. I'm
No,
telling you flat out, they still
no,
wouldn't have
they
beat them
wouldn't.
in 7.
They would have definitely not beat the 73-9 Warriors in
No,
7.
no,
But
no.
I think they would have taken them to 6 games. That's what I think because I liked that
Hey,
Jazz team.
Hayward's a good guy, and he does a lot of good things. But I'm telling you, he's a
Mhm.
number 3 or even 4 guy on a great team. He is like a Lamar Odom on some of those great Lakers teams. He's like a Tony Kukoc or Ron Harper on some of those great Bulls teams. But he is not a
Mhm.
1 or a 2 guy. And I don't think he ever was going to be. If I'm just being super real, I don't think he was ever going to be.
You even think after that injury? I mean, if that
Yep.
injury never happened.
I 100% don't think so because I think Tatum and Brown are far better athletes and far better all around players than Hayward. Just being real.
I agree.
All right.
Mhm.
So
Agreed.
for our final award, this one, I think anyone could win it. MVP. I literally think
Mm,
everyone has a great case for it, but it's just
hmm
gonna come down to who gets the award.
Yep.
What
Yeah.
do you think's gonna be?
I, I I think you're hard pressed for it not to be LeBron. I just with the way the league's
Mhm.
structured, the fact that the Lakers have dealt with key injuries, the fact that if he stepped off of that team, that they would be a marginal playoff team if he just stepped off of it. The fact that they're still getting the
Mhm.
production out of him at his age and the miles he has on his tires is incredible. I think you're hard pressed not to give it to LeBron. I really do. Giannis would be my other choice just because of the same argument with Milwaukee.
Interesting.
I like both picks,
No.
but the only reason I wouldn't go with either or is because of one thing: voter
Hmm.
fatigue. I think I think voter fatigue would really mess it up for LeBron because LeBron has already won 4.
Yep.
They're probably not gonna give more to him. Giannis just went back
Mhm.
to back. He's not gonna go triple. So I think my next
Nope.
pick after both of them would be Joel Embiid, with the Sixers being the number 1 seed after being a number 3 seed, and it looks like they are the strong favorite, top 2 or 3 team to get to the finals out of the East if they were to beat the Nets. Because
I could see that if they really if they continue to play at a super high level and thoroughly dominate the standings, I think I'll agree with you. I could see that.
and I've said this to Dalton too. I feel like Joel Embiid is playing with a big chip on his shoulder. I feel like
Oh yeah.
like the last 2
Mhm.
years, I feel like him getting knocked out by a game winner and just getting wrongful stomped last year too. It's just
hmm
he's like, I need to do something about this. I need to lead this team past so we can at least get to the Western Conference Finals, at least,
I mean,
hmm
Eastern.
or Eastern Conference Finals because East, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so for me, for MVP, at the beginning, I said it was going to be Luka Doncic, only because
hmm
he's been his numbers like at his age is really incredible, and
Yeah.
whenever like people look at him, they kind of it reminds him of LeBron because like Luka and LeBron at that age is like we're putting up really dominant numbers, and that's why I thought it would be Luka, but
Right.
I think with them not being like because they're right now like in a potential play-in spot.
Yep.
But I think either as much as I want Luca to win, I would say maybe even considering Kevin Durant because here's the thing: the man hasn't played ever since the 2019 finals, and the man's been doing great. He's even though they're second in the East behind a good Sixers team,
Right.
and and I think and with what Brooklyn's doing with right now, handling with 3 All Stars, with Kyrie, Harden, and a new coach of Steve Nash,
hmm
and I think they're just handling it really, really well. And,
Yeah.
and I definitely think that he's for sure has to be in the talks.
I definitely agree with that. I think if the NBA had a comeback player of the year award like the NFL does, he would definitely get it. But I
Yeah.
think the thing that keeps him from winning it is if the Nets don't get number 1 seed and number 1 like overall like number 1 team in the entire NBA, he's not gonna get it. Because that team with 3 All-Stars should be the number 1 team in the league. That is
I
3
agree.
superstar teams, all
Yes.
NBA starting lineups for in the last how many ever years for All-Star teams. They've all been on the starting
in
lineup.
the East, no less. So they play their local teams more often. They should have the best record in the league by like 12 games.
Yeah. And if they don't, I don't think Kevin Durant's gonna get the award.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I personally, I think Embiid is in it. I agree. You've won me over, Gabe, and I think Giannis is still in it, even if there might be voter fatigue, and I think LeBron is still in it, even though there might be voter fatigue.
I think
it's a I think it's a 3-horse race. You won me over.
Yeah, I think all 3 of those have a great case. I just think if voter fatigue really plays into this, I think that it's definitely going to go to Joel, because it's just hard to look over that team who jumped from 3 to 1,
Sure.
especially the way he's been playing with a chip on his shoulder.
Yep, definitely.
Well, anyways,
Agree.
that's that's all the time we have for today. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please do leave a like, comment down below, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. We come out with videos like this every Tuesday and Thursday. Follow mine, Sharks, and Colby's socials in the description below, and we will see y'all next time. Peace.
Thanks for having me, guys.